For the first 10 to 12 years as a founder, one of the things that I absolutely dreaded more than anything was hiring new team members. And the reason was I just knew that the process was going to take a lot out of me. It was going to be a lot of time and energy, and it was this long drawn out process, and the filtering through all the resumes and the interviews. And then at the end of this, there was a 50-50 chance that you even pick the right person, and you may end up back at square one going through this entire process again. And it caused me as a business owner to either hang on to people who were B players or people that I just knew were not a right long-term fit for the organization, to hang on to them a lot longer than I should have because I didn't want to have to go through that hiring process. Or it caused me to not hire as quickly as I knew I needed to and grow my business as quickly as it could have because I, again, just didn't want to focus my time and energy towards hiring. And eventually I got to a position where we said, listen, we've got to figure this thing out so that we enjoy the hiring process and we can use it as a major advantage to growing our business. And eventually we got to a point where we had 90% of the people that we were hiring were the right people at the right time in the right seats, and that we could do this process in 7 days or less. And so it wasn't this long out, drawn out process, and there was a high degree of certainty that we were hiring great people. And so I want to share with you the several things that we did in that hiring process to accomplish this goal. So the first part of this process is always just kind of the sourcing and filtering process, getting a whole bunch of potential candidates or potential names or resumes or whatever you're looking for, and then whittling that down to a couple few that are going to make it on to the next step. And so regardless of how you go out and where you share or post your job or what you're using to get those eyeballs, there were three things that we did to really make sure that we had a handful of quality names in a short amount of time, that we were really invested or that we were excited about investing the next amount of time to interview and go through that process. The first one was we kept a spreadsheet internally with our company that we called a future employee pipeline. And these were anybody that we came in contact with, whether it was an old friend of ours, whether it was a business partner, whether it was somebody that was a client of ours that we felt like maybe at some point in the future they could be but just people that we felt like culturally were a great match. And if we had the right position open up that met their skill set, that they would be somebody that we wanted to reach out to. And we actually tasked every single member of our team to add at least one name to this employee pipeline every single quarter. So times the number of employees that we had by at least 4 every single year, we were growing this employee pipeline spreadsheet. And so every time we had a job opening, we would first go through that spreadsheet and we could directly reach out to people and ask if they'd be interested in the position. The second thing that we did to make that filtering and sourcing really easy is that we would leverage heavily our family and friends. And so we'd post it on our social medias, we'd text out to other business owners and entrepreneurs that may have a network of people that are either transitioning in or out of their company. They were great people, but not the right fit at the time. And so we'd leverage that. And then the third thing is we would certainly do the large scale, the paid post on Craigslist and ZipRecruiter and whatnot, and get just 100 resumes in the course of 2 or 3 hours. But what we would do is we would not take resumes. We would require people, we would set up a Google Voice number, and we would require people to call into that number rather than sending us their resume and leave us a 60-second voice message with 1 or 2 specific questions. And so it could be, what was it that most interested you about this job? And what are the reasons that you think that you'd fit in well with Bright Brothers Incorporated or whatever the company is, right? And so in 60 seconds, we didn't ask about their skills necessarily. We just wanted to see, is this a person that seems like they have the right energy and that they're looking for the job for the right reasons? But we also created barriers so that we couldn't just get 50 or 100 voice messages in a 1 or 2 hour period. In fact, we generally got somewhere between 3 and 7 voice messages over a 24-hour period. And that's how long we left this open. And so in 24 hours, we'd get 3 to 7 voice messages. We'd have a list of people that we could reach out to from our future employee pipeline, and we'd have a post out on social media to all of our family and friends, and we may get 1 or 2 from there. So now we're left with a candidate pool of maybe 5 to 12 or so candidates. From there, we'd email and ask for a resume, and we'd ask to set up a phone interview. Now that phone interview was only 15 minutes. And the goal of this wasn't to figure out all their skills and everything that they brought to the table. The goal was, again, just to really make sure that this was somebody that conversationally we felt like had the things that we needed for the job and to be a really good and valuable part of our team. And so step 1 was figuring out the right way to get the candidates in. Step 2 was basically figuring out a phone process that we could really quickly take that list of 8 or 12 with a small amount of time invested over a single day with a couple 15-minute phone calls. We could figure out were there 3, 4, or 5 people that we actually wanted to bring in for a formal interview where we could actually go through the real details, test their skills. And at this interview, which was step 3 of the process, we would actually test less on skills, although we wanted to make sure that they were a skill match, that they had the God-given talents and ability and capacity and training and experience and education, or that they were excited about getting all of that to achieve or accomplish the goals that we needed them and roles that we needed them to handle. But we also were really focused a lot more on the values. And so we had 3 values, core values at our company: improve, impress, enjoy. And so we had questions that were specifically geared towards figuring out, is this somebody who constantly is looking to improve every part of their life? Or is this somebody who's okay with status quo? Is this somebody who really wants to impress people when they are tasked with something and working on a team or working individually? Are they always trying to be impressive? Or is this somebody who's okay with just kind of delivering bare minimums? Is this somebody who really has an appetite and a thrill for life and wants to enjoy everything that they do? Or is clocking into work simply a paycheck for them? And so we had a lot of questions that would be very values based. And so through that interview process, we would really get a sense of, are they going to be a cultural and a values match for us? And then we'd also, in that time, figure out, are they going to be a skills match as well? And so from there, we'd have 3 to 5 candidates, and generally we would have one candidate that we felt best about. And we would invite that candidate later that week to go out with our entire team, or the 6 to 8 people that would be most closely working with them, for a lunch. We'd take them out to lunch. We'd just socialize. There was no more questions or any. We just wanted to see how they'd interact in a social environment with our team or the people they'd be working most closely with. And through that, we'd come back after that. We'd generally spend about 2 hours. They were usually long lunches. They were a lot of fun. And we'd sit down with the team. We'd say, where were the red flags? What were the things that stood out to you? And it wasn't necessarily trying to approve them. It was trying to disqualify them. Was there anything that would disqualify this person from a culture standpoint? Or is this somebody that you'd love working next to day to day and that you'd love to be working alongside? If they passed that, we then moved on to what I'd call kind of the date before you go exclusive phase. And we realized that you can hire somebody on an independent contractor basis and pay them up to $600 without even having to give them a 1099 at the end of the year. And so we'd create a series of projects or tasks that were related to the job that we were hiring them for. We'd bring them in for a couple days or maybe even a week, but before they were even hired, and with a clear understanding that we just want to test this out and see if there's a fit. So we didn't have to fully train them. And really what we'd do is we'd give them very little instruction. We had a very low management hierarchy, and so we didn't want to be managing. So we'd give them a simple set of tasks or instructions and see if they could just move and go and kind of figure it out and build their process around that. And we got to see them for 2 or 3 or 5 days working within an environment and actually accomplishing the things that we needed them to accomplish. And at the very end of that, we would then extend them a long-term employment agreement. And I can tell you that with 90% certainty, by the time we extended a contract agreement or an employment agreement, that when we got to that phase, we were hiring the right person at the right time in the right seat with a 90% degree of confidence that that person would be there long-term. We also really focused on our onboarding process. So once we brought them on, we'd make sure that they felt really, really welcome. We'd have a few surprises in that first week. We tried to really give them the time and attention that they needed, as well as the resources, collect feedback really quickly, and really make them feel a part of the team. And so this was our process that landed us at 90% certainty with the people that we were hiring, that they'd be the right fit, the right person, the right seat at the right time, and that we could do it in less than 7 days. Hopefully some of those you can take to you and take to your team and your hiring process and turn it from something that maybe you dread today and something that can be a big asset for growing your team and your business in the future.